All right, leaders, welcome back to the Group Leader Podcast, and I'm back with my friend, the one and only Glenn Underhill. Glenn, glad you're on again for the third time.
Yes, 3 times you've asked me to come back.
You're not going away. In fact, you're coming back, I think, at least a couple more times and probably some more in the future.
Yeah, well, good.
And I've been trying to get him to drop a quote from Nacho Libre. It's one of his favorite movies.
It is one of my favorites.
I feel like right now you just need to drop one. What's one of your favorite quotes from Nacho?
Well, I've got a lot. But get that corn out of my face. I mean, that's a really good one too. That's Those eagle's eggs, they bring me no power.
Oh my gosh! So I wanted him to do this because he does this in the office at least a few times a month, where he'll just drop a quote randomly into conversation, and then you just start laughing. So I don't know if that's strategic or if it's just part of who you are.
I love using movie quotes along the way just to keep things moving along and humorous. So. Yeah, I'm a movie quote kind of guy.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's dive in. So we're talking about this idea of how do you grow your people. And so we're kind of building on this series, talking about what a healthy connect group is, how do you grow your group, and now we're talking about how do you grow the people. They're in your room, now what? And so really when we talk about growing people, this idea of growth, right? We're all growing, right? Whether we're growing in our career, we're growing in our family, we're growing just personally in our own lives. I mean, growth is everywhere, but growth also kind of hurts.
Yep.
Growth can challenge us, it can stretch us. And, when I think about growth, Dan Spader even talks a lot about growth in some of his book called The 4-Chair Disciple Making, and how everything grows. Just like a tree grows, everything grows. And that even Jesus grew his disciples. And so when we're having this conversation, growth is been happening for centuries.
Right.
And more specifically, God wants us to grow and wants us to grow our people. And so when you think about this idea of growth and how we help people grow, what are some specific ways, Glenn, and just in your experience, have been some very effective ways for helping people grow in groups, in a connect group? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think first and foremost, they grow in people skills, right? They learn how to love people in spite of sometimes maybe someone who might be, kind of rubbing on them a little bit. So I think they grow that way. They learn how to love people really well, even how to love people well when those people have been knocked down because of life or challenges in their circumstances, and how to come alongside people and love them. They learn how to love people when people fail them or whatever that might look like, and they learn how to come alongside that and to learn to love people well that way. I think people grow through the Word, obviously, right? I so many people are afraid of the Bible. There's some fear, and so I think in a group, especially when you're doing some interactive teaching and you're helping people to take these steps towards encountering God's Word and interacting with other people, and that's a growth moment, right?
Yeah.
I think that really helps them. And then I think because when we think about this growing your people, I think of it as, we talked about earlier, grow your group. I think of that as the kind of that numerical piece, so to speak. But I think of this as as you're growing your people. I think of it as the spiritual piece. Hey, we're helping that dynamic, that spiritual dynamic, that transformative piece, to helping them to become all that God intends for them to be. And I think that's that again, with people, with the Word, they're interacting with the Word, and then they're being challenged, to not be just complacent and stagnant, but to serve and to look beyond themselves, right? I think groups are a great place where people start thinking about not just me, but I start to catch a vision for we, so that I can ultimately have a vision for others.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because you're saying that, and I was just thinking of, in my mind, a guy that recently I was in a Connect group and was helping teach. They don't have a teacher right now, and so he's been sitting in there for like over a year or so, and I mean, he has great insights. He's constantly, giving things during the lesson. And when he's talking in between the lesson, he's got great insight. And so I finally went up to him. I was like, all right, bro, like, who are you? One, two, have you ever thought about teaching? And he's like, oh, no. I would never teach. There's just no way. And I was like, but have you ever considered just trying it? And he was like, wow, this is why I never really wanted to get in a group to begin with, because I knew you were going to come find me. But I say that because that's what's the beauty of groups, is that people who are kind of just a number in a crowd now becomes a person with a face,
right,
and skills and abilities. And really, we begin to see the purpose that God has for that individual life,
right,
which is the beauty of what we get to do as group leaders. It's not just about gathering people together just to gather them for that sake, but really to say, okay, what is God doing in this group? And then individually with each person, what is he calling them to take kind of for their next step?
Right.
And so when we think about this idea of next steps, Jesus was a master at inviting people into next steps. And so, Glenn, you're kind of a master at understanding. I shouldn't say that.
I don't know if I'm a master.
But you travel around for Disciple
Right.
First. You talk about Jesus' model for both ministry and life. And so I know he's given, Jesus has given us kind of 4 invitations in the Bible of how he was inviting his disciples to next steps, which I think is good for us to hear and maybe use and model for our own people. So what are those 4 invitations?
Well, we use them here. I mean, right? We probably don't talk as much about the invitation, but we do have a pathway. Jesus had a pathway of moving people who were irreligious to helping them become a fully trained disciple who was capable of really impacting the world where they live, learn, work, and play. And they were disciple makers, right? They went from being so far from God to becoming disciple makers who were changing the world. So, I mean, Jesus obviously would say, "Hey, come and see." That was that first invitation. It was really geared towards people who were distant, far from God. They were spiritually lost, right? But he began to have conversations with them, and it was a safe place, and they could have their spiritual questions answered. And then once they began to have spiritual answers to their questions, he made another invitation to them. And that next appropriate invitation was, "Hey, follow me," right? And really that was what Jesus was saying is, hey, now that you've had those questions answered, I'm asking you to make another commitment here. And that commitment is to cross the line of faith, put your trust and faith in me, but then to choose to follow me. And I'm going to show you how to do it. That's the great thing, is it's not hey, it's just going to happen, but you need someone to come alongside you. And I think this is where, again, connect groups are perfect for, because it becomes this spiritual greenhouse where people can learn to follow Jesus really well in their journey in that invitation. But again, that follow me. The third invitation Jesus made was, come be with me, right? That idea that, hey, I want to train you up. I want to start really looking at how I can help, like a laser, help you to reflect the character and the competencies of Jesus in that person, that Christ-likeness piece. And then the last invitation that Jesus made was, go bear much fruit and have a life that is going to impact those around you where you live, learn, work, and play. It's not about me, but it's about others, and how and am I living my life in such a way that I'm really having a spiritual impact where I live, learn, work, and play, and I'm focused on helping then people take next steps and follow those invitations along the way.
And what I love about it is that all along the way, Jesus is walking with his disciples in that invitation. It's not, like you said, it's not an invite and then just drop and leave and then they're on their own. But Jesus was walking with them all along the steps. But then you kind of get to the fourth, and then he's like, all right, you're on your own, buddy. And now repeat the process with someone else and invite them. And so we call that really here at the church, kind of that explore, connect, grow, and multiply.
Right.
And I'm just kind of curious, Glenn, what would it look like for you to give a personal invite to help someone in a group grow? Like if you're in your group and you've identified someone and you're like, hey, I kind of know they have the next step, what would that look like?
Yeah, and I think this is an important skill that you're looking for in your group. So as you're thinking about helping your people grow, and we're identifying maybe where are they on the pathway, right? I think the group leadership should know where their people are along the pathway, and then helping them with conversations and things taking their next step. So if a person was at that stage of like, hey, they're in the kind of in that connect phase, they're in the follow me, but they're, and you begin to see a spiritual curiosity. They're asking, much more questions. They, you've noticed that their faithfulness has kind of risen up. You've noticed that they're much more available. They, they're engaged and they're starting to lean in. Like sometimes people don't know what to ask, so they just say, hey, I need something deeper. I need something more. Those were always good indicators that they weren't being mean or ugly. They were just like, hey, I'm ready for another commitment. I'm ready for that next step. So I just would pull them aside on a Sunday, and if you have someone in your Connect group who's kind of championing those grow values, if you as a leader see that and talk to that person, or you're the one kind of helping engage that, I'd just say, hey, man, I notice God is really at work in you. I can see some real transformative things happening in your journey, and I'm getting ready to start a new grow group. Kind of maybe explain a little bit about what the purpose of a grow group is, and just say I'd love for you to really consider being a part of that. And then kind of laying out a little bit of what the expectations are. Man, when people get invited into something like that and they're ready, more times than not they'll say yeah, or they may say, hey, can you give me? And I always like to say, hey, just take a little bit of time, pray about it, think about it, and then I'm going to circle back with you in a few days just to check and see where you're at on that.
Yeah. And some of the things, like even what I love to do, and you kind of hinted at it, but I always call it the I see in you conversation. Like, hey, Glenn, I see this in you. Here's what God's doing in your life. I can see it from a distance. I've watched you for a season, and I really think that this next step would be really great for you. And let's just be honest. I mean, you as a leader, people in the world, not a lot of people are doing I see in you conversations.
Nope.
They're doing, hey, you stink. You're not meeting this mark. Your KPI, your KRA, or what? You're not hitting it. And so you're always feeling like, okay, am I really able to do this? But when you say I see in you, it's been interesting when I sit down with guys and go, hey, I see this in you. It's almost like they're in disbelief, but then they're like, oh, like this is a breath of fresh air, because you're actually speaking something good over me.
Right.
And everyone has something, right? It's not like you're just coming up with something, but everyone, God's doing something in their life, and we can call that out in them and call them into that next step.
Yep.
And so maybe give an example, Glenn, of someone you got to invite maybe even recently. You don't have to use a name or anything, but just someone that you sat down and said, I saw this in you, and then you. Yeah,
so I'm actually going to say his name.
Go for it.
His name is Heath. He and his wife, Laura, great couple, just kind of casually attending our church, and then kind of said, hey, you guys should be getting into a group. I was able to get them help getting connected into Real Life, and they've been an amazing couple in that group, and that is a great shout out to Real Life. They have a great group, and they started getting in that group, started making friendships in that group. We started to see some of these things with Heath, and man, God was doing a work in his life, and I just started to see his availability, and his group leader saw that, and so the group leader said to me, Brian, he said, hey, I want to start a grow group in our group. Would you be willing to help me? I started the process, but then something happened along the way. Would you be willing to do that? And I've got a couple guys in the group I'd love to invite to be a part of that. And he did that. And Heath was one of those guys that came and was a part of that group. And man, I have watched God do a work, a really transformative work in Heath's life. He went through the grow group, then he helped me lead another grow group. He went with me to Montreal. He's now teaching in that group, and even considering maybe some possibilities at some point, maybe launching a new group. So and we're watching God do some really cool things in his life, that it's been a process. It hasn't been overnight. It hasn't been quick, but it has been steady, but also fun to watch him really lean in and look at what it would mean to be a disciple maker where he lives, learns, works, and plays.
Yeah. Say something about Heath real quick. I thought it was really funny. He started showing up at the church in this backpack. And I promise this is a great story. He starts showing up with a backpack, and I'm like, Heath, Like, why are you showing up in a backpack? And he was like, well, Glenn invited me in to start growing. And then he started giving me all these books. And so he takes the backpack off his back, opens it up, and he's got like 3 books in there. Like he's gone back to college or seminary or something. And so it's been cool to watch him. I mean, he went out and was like, I need a backpack. I need book. Like he's bought in.
He is bought in. He's a great guy.
Yeah. And he's got a great wife, a great family.
He does.
And
his kids are good.
They're all
good
supportive.
people. Yeah.
Like that's what's so cool about this is that when one person catches the fire and the wind of that, then the whole family, right, is now like, okay, well, we want to be part of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so just what you do as a group leader is so impactful that when you're inviting people in to grow and move down the pathway from explore, connect, grow, multiply. That's not something we made up out of the wind. I mean, that comes from the life of Jesus.
Yep. And that's what I love, and just a shout out to Brian. I mean, Brian Dodd just did a magnificent job, and just, he saw it, identified it, said, hey, come and be a part of it. And, he had a couple guys from his group come and be a part of that. And man, it was a lot of fun, especially to do it with a bunch of guys that were in his group. Because they've been able to mobilize some of those guys too to do some other things in their families, to do some other things within that group that have really helped that group get really healthy and growing, and it's been fun to watch for sure.
It's like the groups, man. Every time I see a group that's growing and I go in and investigate and I'm like, what are you doing in here? Like our young adult group recently was exploding and they're doing all this stuff with fellowship. In fact, just recently I was in a meeting and they're launching 4 grow groups.
Wow.
Out of that group.
Yep.
Why? Because they're intentional. They're just thinking about it. Right. You go into some other groups where they're growing as well. They're moving people into service. They're moving people to be stretched, to bring them up into leadership within the group.
Right.
They're just always looking at people. I mean, I'm sure they probably have a roster and they're putting next to their names going, this person's explore, connect, grow, multiply. And then here's the next step. And then praying about that.
Yeah.
I mean, prayer is a huge vehicle and tool that we can use because we can't coerce people. I mean, we could, but we don't want to do that. And so we really want the Spirit of God to prompt them to take that step. And so even maybe as you're inviting people, praying beforehand, taking time to really lay it before the Lord to go, God, would you move in this person's life? I'm sure you're doing that with Heath. You saw Heath, you're like, Lord, I'm going to make the ask. Give me favor with him. And that, don't underestimate that. I've done that multiple times in my life and have regretted it. I remember praying hard about someone I invited into a cohort recently. And I walked in kind of like James. I was kind of wavering. I was like, I don't know, Lord. And I went in and was like, hey, let's do this. And he's like, you won't believe it. Like God's been speaking to me 3 days before this. And I knew coming in what you were going to ask me. And I was like, whoa. Like God is moving, even despite our times when we're not moving people to the pathway. God's going to do it.
Right.
So when we think about this concept of growing your people, what would be a practical takeaway for a leader to do this week? I mean, what could they begin doing?
Yeah, I think honestly is, have you identified where people are in your group? Do you, and I think as a good shepherd, Proverbs talks about that a shepherd will know the condition of his flock, right?
Yeah.
In Proverbs 27, and I think that there is, does you and your leadership team know the condition of your flock? Do you know where people are? If you don't, hey, my first encouragement would be, let's start there. Let's come to us and let us help you, because we can actually pull that up on database. We can help you see how you can begin to track people and help them think about maybe taking next steps. Because honestly, truthfully, there are people coming to the group that have not been baptized, maybe not have even maybe crossed the line of faith. They may be religiously lost. We think they're saved, but really they're not. They've not joined the church. They've not been through Discover Cross Creek. They're wanting to grow. I mean, there's a number of steps that we can help them take. Yeah. But again, I would start there. Is, do you have a good idea of the people that are coming to your group on the regular? Do you have an idea of where they are and how you guys can then begin to think about how do we help them take another step?
Yeah, and I love that because, I mean, essentially what you're saying is don't assume.
Right.
be proactive, and go reach out. Know where each person is. And if you need help with that, let us know. Reach out. We can get you a document that will tell you where they are, Explore, Connect, Grow, Multiply. And then we would love to help you, or your coach, your group coach can help you with then moving those people to their next step. And so, well, Glenn, thank you for hopping on in this podcast. And
pleasure.
Man, this is good. It gets me fired up to think about, man, this is what we get to do.
Yeah.
We get to be a part of this and be a part of this big initiative.
Can I just say this? And
Yeah.
I just want to encourage you as a group leader. There is nothing greater in our lives than the opportunity to be involved in eternal things. There really are only three things that will last forever: God, His Word, and people. And I am so grateful that you are investing your time in people, because it is an investment that will have a return to it. And I just, I lean into it. I know it's hard and it's messy and it can get difficult and discouraging, because that's the enemy wants more than nothing to do that.
Yeah.
But it is a work that's worth doing the work of. So stay at it, and remember that this delights the Lord when we're helping people grow.
Mm-hmm. Well, with that, there's nothing else to say. I can't follow it up. And so thank you for listening to this podcast, and we can't wait to catch you at the next one.
Yeah. Thanks, Cam, for having me.
Yeah, it's been good.